AITA for not honoring my son's punishment. Update 2. I told my ex to cancel her vacation as my son will not be going because it affects my custody time. Yes. I told her it was okay, but after her husband's stint of saying he couldn't do the sleepover, which was on my day anyways, I had to crack the whip. Let those two eat each other alive. They deserve each other. Update 1. This hilarious. My son's best friend mom emailed us an invite for a sleepover which is on my day. I was going to see if my son wanted to go, but my ex's husband said my son could not go as he was grounded. I can react in so many ways. His mom and I are divorced and don't have much of a relationship. Cordial, but indifferent. Our son is now 11 and my ex remarried a few years ago, but she was with the guy for some time. We have 50 over 50. She requested that she have him for 2 weeks for vacation. I agreed even though this ate into my time with him. Apparently, he got into it with stepdad and he got grounded for a week. Well, most of that week is my week with him before he leaves for vacation with them, and she asked me to see to it that his grounding continues through my time. I won't see him for 3 weeks. I'm not saying not to punish him. Punish him when he's on their time. I have no problems with him when he's with me. I refused. I already made plans to make most, if the days, that I have him, and I'm sure as hell I'm not going to cancel those plans because he mouthed off to stepdad. I don't care much for stepdad anyways. What I do with my son on my time is my business and vice versa. Also, I don't want to set precedent where I'm the parent who has to do both sides of discipline. Edit. Update. My son called him a freaking asshole. My ex calls him the same thing when they fight. Her words. Not mine. He learned it from her. Not me. I don't open share my dislike for her husband. Maybe an eye roll. But I'm too corporate and professional to do it in front of my son. NTA. The grounding can occur during her time. Had she called you and discussed the punishment beforehand, then you could have worked together on something suitable, but she dropped her own hammer and expects your plans to be thrown out to accommodate her. That's not okay. My thoughts exactly. She should have called after the event, told him what happened and what she thinks should be the punishment, and asked what he thought. Then they should have talked to the kid together. Either they do it all together or keep it all separate. NTA. It really is up to you how you spend your time with your son. Especially in this situation. If the mom was going to ground him in such a way that ran into your time, you should have been involved in deciding the punishment. Just keep in mind, she doesn't need to pay you the same courtesy. If you have to ground your son later on, you can't expect her to play along. I'm leaning towards NTA for all of these reasons. If she wants him to respect her grounding as a punishment, he needs to be a part of the punishment conversation. If my kids get in trouble while they're with their dad, and it's bad enough to where they have to tell me, almost never the case, I can choose or not choose to follow it. If my kids are giving me trouble, I will tell their dad, and he can choose not to follow it. It lets them know what to keep an eye out for. And if he sees any of the same behavior, he can talk to them. I can't tell him what to do with the kids on his time, and he can't tell me what to do with them on my time. If Op reads this, maybe I'd suggest having a better summer vacation schedule. We typically have a split week schedule, but during vacation, my girl's dad and I get 3 weeks per summer, not to be scheduled consecutively. We can't go more than 7 days without seeing our kids on top of our regular custody days. My kid was living mainly with me, but visiting their dad on alternate weekends. They entered into an inappropriate relationship, and I said no. They were 13 over 14. Partner was 15 over 16, and had already amassed a number of criminal charges for drugs, weapons, vandalism, and had left visible bite marks on my kid's face, arms and leg. Dad felt I was being ridiculous, since his parents never tried to dictate who he could date. Dad ultimately told my kid not to listen to me, and not only enabled the relationship on his weekends, but also told my kid to lie to me about where they were and who they were with while on my time. Slippery slope. That's some bullshit. Sorry you had to deal with that. Esh. The kid was probably in the wrong for mouthing off. Pending a really good reason. The stepdad may have given him a good reason to, and may be overstepping his bounds when it comes to dealing with a kid that isn't his own. The mom should not be giving punishments on your time. She should have at least consulted you before handing out the punishment that you would have to enforce. If you didn't agree, she should have come up with a different tactic. You are in the wrong for a few reasons. 1. You don't get to assign the importance of discipline for disrespectful behavior according to your personal opinion of the person who was disrespected. 2. Consistency is necessary and you and your ex need to present a united front when it comes to raising your son. That means you back each other up, even when it sucks. 3. The kid's bad behavior doesn't stop counting just because his location changed. Whether he is with you or with them, he still did something wrong, and that needs to have consequences. The only good thing I can say here is that at least you didn't agree to enforce it and then ignore it once she was out of sight. You said no right off and gave a good explanation as to why. Info. What are the grounding rules? I get you not wanting to have to cancel plans and shit like that. I think you could stick to something like no phones if that was part of the grounding. But he's 11, so probably no phone. I always thought grounding was having to stay at home alone unless your parents took you somewhere. So no time at a friend's house or friends visiting you. Not literally having to stay home even though your parent wants to take you shopping / to a restaurant / wherever. Wouldn't you just be screwing yourself as a parent in that case? NTA. Punish him when he's on their time. This is it exactly. My time, vacation. Your time, punishment. Seems fair. NTA. Going against the majority here. I'm in a similar situation. My ex is a pain and tries to parent my kid. My ex works a busy schedule and lets her, they aren't married. When my kid's with me, I'm not following their punishments. She is free from that. Someone else here said that one parent shouldn't have to suffer because the other sucks at parenting. NTA. They can ground him while he is with them during this instance. If the incident was anything else like fighting or a more vile behavior, then I could see the grounding carrying over to your house. With that being said, maybe you can talk to your son to see what happened and how he felt. Even if you don't like the stepdad, you need to stress to your son that it is not okay to treat people poorly. I hope Bob takes this into consideration. 11 is way too young to be encouraged to speak to anyone that way. NTA. As a divorced father in a 50/50 arrangement. You are correct. Pretty simple. Had she wanted to ground him extending into your time, she could have discussed with you prior to punishing him. She did not, and therefore she has zero influence or say over how you decide to spend your time with your son. She can continue the grounding when he goes back to their house. This is how my ex and I did it. My house. My rules. Her house. Her rules. No overlap. Worked out great. If it affected both of us, then we worked together. Kid coming from divorced parents here. My parents had the same attitude. As a kid, I learned very quickly that it means if I don't like what mom/dad said, I can just go to the other parent's house where I wasn't being punished. It led to a broken relationship with one of my parents. My brother is very close with my dad, and I'm very close to my mom. Unfortunately, I don't see my dad much, and my brother doesn't see our mom. It's murky water. Careful where you tread. Also a kid coming from a divorced household, and that is not at all how things went for me. Punishments were always enforced separately. No broken relationships here. My mom and dad had a difficult transition, but I'm grateful that they respected each other's boundaries. Sorry you had a different experience. The child could be playing both of you against each other. Info. Exactly why did he tell his stepdad to fuck off? Did it have anything to do with you, or was it just a general teenage issue? If it had something to do with you and your hold was standing up for you to a stepdad who is jealous or doesn't like you, I could see him standing up for you. Maybe not telling him to fuck off, but something like, don't talk about my dad like that. But if it was over not doing dishes or something of the like, and was a completely reasonable thing to ask, what makes you think it'll stay an isolate event? It's been building up. My ex and her husband have a toxic relationship. They met online and she moved in 6 months later with my son being there 50% of the time. Husband has control issues. He pretends to be a white knight and then turns into a monster when he thinks you're not loyal. She's only with him because he told her he is going to make millions and retire in a few years and take care of her. Anyways. Sometimes my son fights with his mom and husband gets involved, and my son is old enough to tell him what he thinks. My ex tries to toe the line because she knows if he ever gets crazy with my son then I'll take her to court. Though mostly you. The kid is 11 years old and is being incredibly disrespectful to his stepfather and his mother. While his mother should not be calling the kid an asshole, it does not give the kid license to use the word back. Discipline should be respected by both parties regardless of whose time it infringes. You had agreed to the mother's request to take the kid on vacation and you reneged on that agreement because you dislike your son's stepfather. This is the real reason. Regardless of how you justify your actions. You sound petty and your son will realize this as he gets older. Being a father is not about being liked. It is about being a father. You and your ex are acting just like my parents did when I was a kid. Using your kids as pawns to undermine each other. I'm 29 now. I haven't talked to my dad in 13 years. I moved 2,000 miles from my family and put in the minimum effort with my mom. Seeing her maybe once a year. And if you keep parenting like this your kid is going to grow up to hate you. Congratulations on being a shit dad. I love how the topic has been flared as everyone sucks. But Op has been overwhelmingly voted not the asshole. If you enjoyed this video then hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more future videos.